This is video number 2 within the Introduction to Strategy for the ERPsim manufacturing game. So this is for the extended manufacturing game, and it follows concepts that are laid out within my SAP Labs and Textbook 3rd edition. The video itself presumes you have some ERPsim, specifically some SAP experience, probably in the distribution game, probably in the SAP Labs. If you've completed the labs, you have some production experience. So labs 1 through 3, lab 1 in particular does production manually. Lab 4 is the full production process. You have some knowledge of the manufacturing game itself, the basic company and the market setup, and then you also have some experience and some knowledge with the production process. And again, lab 4 would have covered the production process and given you some of the manufacturing game knowledge. The video also presumes you've watched the first video in this series, and if you have not, I suggest you go back and watch it first. So within your ERPsim team, you have essentially 4 different roles. Again, you might only have 1 person on your team, you might have 5 people on your team. It's a matter of just dividing up some of the different roles here. This video is going to focus on the production manager strategies and the production manager role. Remember that no matter which role you have, you need to be communicating. In order for ERPsim to work, you have the ERPsim system, the SAP ERP system, which is providing all the information needed for every role throughout and in real time, but you also need to be talking. So while this video is focused on the production manager, everyone else should understand your role, and you should be communicating with everyone else as well. So strategy. The production process is actually the core of your team's success. Without production, there's no revenue. If there's poor production, it's low revenue, and all of that pulls together to no or low profit. So you cannot have a successful ERPsim company without good ERPsim production. So remember, revenue minus expense equals profit, net income. If you are not producing well, that means you can't possibly have a lot of revenue. And the expenses just keep piling up. So remember, revenue is an important part. The production manager is the person in charge of making sure your revenue stream is intact. The strategy starts before the simulation starts. So round 1, day 1, you have no raw material inventory, you have no finished goods inventory, you have no historical sales data. So where do you start? And that's actually a very big task, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And here's something I'll go ahead and let you know, you will be wrong. Whatever you start with is going to change. It is going to be wrong. Every time the simulation starts, product preferences are different. So every single time you're really working to try to figure things out. So round 1 for every team, everyone's developing some sales history. Which products are selling, where, which price. This is going to guide your future sales forecast. So whatever you start with, it's going to end up different. So if you're paying attention, you're changing your forecast quite a bit those first maybe round and a half. So different teams have different strategies, but in general, start small. Once you get some more experience, you might change that, but in general, start small. So the textbook talks about, there's a whole section on the sales forecast, and throughout that whole section, it talks about how a quantified discussion about the sales forecast is really just an educated guess. So how much information do we have? As we get more information, we can make a better sales forecast. So the starting forecast laid out in the textbook, again, it's because you don't have any of the sales history. So plan to spend round 1 or more building your sales history, communicate with your team, which products, and then what. So where do you start? Well, you have 6 products, 2 sizes. That's 12 different products that you can actually work with, 12 different material codes to work with. So the textbook notes a starting forecast, and it's quantified, a quantified educated guess. It recommends that you start with 6 products. 6 products with a sales forecast of $37,000 each. Which 6 of those 12? That depends on your strategy. So talk with your analyst, talk with your planner, quantify, qualify. Which ones do you start with? Which 6 do you start with? Once you have figured out which 6 you're going to start with, communicate with your sales manager. Say, we're doing these 6 products. We're starting with these. And that's an important piece. All of this communication is coming together. If you, as the production manager, are just picking random products and random forecast, no one really knows what's going on. So communication before the game starts is very important. So complete the production process. Once complete, take a look at your production schedule. So you're going to look in the production schedule and see when the very last product is going to be confirmed. With that information, plan your next production run. And remember that there is the lead time. So if it takes 1 to 5 days for raw materials, you're going to want to plan your next production run with that lead time in mind. So, and again, remember, you're still building market knowledge, historical data. So in that round one, what do? Maybe you change the forecast and create the other 6 products at 37,000. That should take you through round one, and you now have some sales data for all 12 products. But it's entirely up to you. Talk to your group. What's next? What should we do next? What do you want me to do next? Maybe your analyst and planner have gotten the analytics down enough that by the second time, they know which products are best. Probably not realistic, but they might say, ooh, it looks like this one's selling fast. Go for this. Some strategies and pitfalls within your role. The sales forecast, MRP, the purchase or acquisition to purchase order conversion, not running MRP until you've converted your planned orders to production orders. All of this, we'll talk about this in a moment. For your sales forecast, guessing doesn't work. This is an educated guess. Make it better educated. So the more information that you receive, the better it will be. So make sure you're quantifying throughout. A forecast of 16,000 for one product guarantees low revenue, and if you don't know why, read the textbook. Quantify. You need to have an educated guess. Remember your lead time. If you execute MRP and convert your purchase requisitions to purchase orders, the suppliers require 1 to 5 days for raw material delivery. And then you still have to manufacture it. It could be 10 days before you get that finished product. So you've got to think this through. If your hottest product is not going to be manufactured for 10, 11, 12 simulated days, that's profit that you're losing. A low forecast is bad. So it's 1 to 5 days of lead time. Your daily production capacity is 24,000. If you have a forecast of 16,000 for one product, well, intuitively, that's a lot of downtime. That is a very poor forecast. 16,000 for one product with all the lead time, that's essentially meaning you're going to have 4, 5, 6 days with no productivity. So that's bad. Planning your forecast. Communicate with your group on this. Which products? How much? The forecast will never, ever be set it and forget it. It is just not going to work. So it will change as your team gets more experience, more information. And if you are going through this and you still haven't changed your forecast from the initial one, my question for you would be, why? Why aren't you changing it? Something's not right. You at least need to change it once. Maybe you have your analytics really tied down and you know this is the forecast and you never change it. I don't know. But as you're learning, you should always be changing your forecast. Running MRP. Remember, MRP is material requirements planning. It's just planning. Every time you execute MRP, a new plan is created based on current conditions. If the old plans are still there, they were never converted, when you re-execute MRP, it closes those old plans and makes new plans. So again, the new plans are based on current conditions. If you are constantly selling your product, as hopefully you are, every time you run MRP, you're going to be getting new plans. So don't execute MRP too often. It is part of the process. So we have sales forecast, MD61, MD01, MRP. This is planning. Here, the purchase requisitions for purchase orders, and it's also planning the planned production orders. So you're planning two different things. You need to complete this process. So MRP, convert the purchase requisitions to purchase orders, watch for your raw materials, and wait. Wait here. Once all these raw materials come in, then convert your planned production orders to actual production orders. At that point, repeat. And maybe you're changing the forecast, maybe you're going right into MRP. So realize this. If you execute MRP while you're waiting for raw materials, and I sometimes have students who get antsy and they say, it's just not producing fast enough, I need to run MRP again, I need to run MRP again, I need to run MRP again. So they keep getting into this cycle where they're here and they're waiting, and they run MRP again. And then they're waiting, and they run MRP again. And then they try to convert. Realize every single time that you run MRP, you're planning for your purchase requisitions and planned production orders. If you execute MRP here, it's creating a new plan here for procurement and a new plan here for production. If you don't have the raw materials to match the production orders here, it's not going to work. And that's something I sometimes see is people saying, it's not working. I keep running MRP and it won't let me convert anything. Most often, it's because you're running MRP too often. So this is the process. Until you've converted everything, don't run MRP again. That's a complicated part of this, but just realize this is the process. Don't run MRP until you work through that process. Within the purchase requisition to purchase order conversion, ME59N, remember that the sales forecast is a replenishment level. If you say in your forecast that you want 37,000 of the 500 gram nut muesli, you execute MRP, MRP checks the finished goods inventory, and it says, how many do you need to reach 37,000 finished goods? Now this is not just inventory, it's looking at your production schedule as well, the work in process. So it's saying, okay, how much do you need to reach 37,000? If your inventory, whether it be actual in stock or work in process, is 37,000, it will say, you don't need anything. It will not order anything. It will not plan anything for the 500 gram nut muesli. So if you run MRP, MD01 with a sales forecast which equals the inventory, no suitable purchase requisitions found. That's the error, not the error, that's the message you're going to be getting. This often happens in round one after the first production process. And if you think about it, if you have 6 products all listed at 37,000, you convert all of them and then quickly run MRP within the same simulated day, MRP is looking at your finished goods inventory and the work in process. All 37 that you just said, that you just converted, and it's saying, you don't need anything. No suitable purchase requisitions found. So realize this is one of the most common questions that I hear. ME59N keeps telling me no suitable purchase requisitions found. What that probably is that MRP is looking at inventory and work in process and your forecast and saying, you don't need anything. Now here's something else, and this is very similar. The forecast is set for 37,000 of the 500 gram nut muesli. MRP is checking your raw material inventory as well. So how many raw materials do you need to reach 37,000? If your raw material inventory is enough for 37,000, you don't need anything. Again, you'll get no suitable purchase requisitions found. This often happens when the production process is completed out of step. So in this situation, if you have a forecast that is set up and you keep running ME59N and it's telling you no suitable purchase requisitions found, check your inventory. If your raw material inventory is showing that you have a lot of raw material in stock, jump ahead to CO41 and convert your production orders. You are essentially skipping a step. This happens when the production process is out of step. This can happen, again, when you're completing it and not in order, but also if in the middle of the production process, you change your forecast. You lower your forecast. So if your forecast was 150,000 and you say, well, we don't want that, and you drop it down to 37,000, well, it's probably not going to order anymore. So MRP is complicated. It is highly unlikely that it's doing something wrong. So if your forecast is lower or equal to your inventory, check your forecast, take a look. Finish inventory, if it's where your forecast is, again, it's going to tell you no suitable purchase requisitions found. So finish inventory, raise your forecast, execute MRP again. Raw material inventory, execute CO41 and convert your orders. If your purchase order tracking is stuck and it's set for unscheduled or unconfirmed, and I'll sometimes get this as a question from some of my students, they'll say, my raw materials aren't coming in. What I recommend is that you confirm your company code and client. Are you logged on to the correct company, the correct client? Check the ERPsim viewer. Is the viewer progressing from one day to the next? Ask your group if they are also having issues. If everyone's having an issue, contact your instructor. Otherwise, it's probably something that you didn't do correctly. So it's most often I find it is because someone's logged on to the wrong company code or the wrong client or maybe even the wrong server. So it's that login information that makes a difference. So go back and check those things. But if everything is if you're in the right system, ERPsim viewer is connecting and moving properly, and your group is not having issues, all right, contact your instructor. Something's going on. Production scheduling. Realize that there is a strategy for converting production orders as well. So your capacity is 24,000 units a day. The lot sizes have a minimum of 16,000 and a maximum of 48,000 units. If you have if MRP runs and decides that you need something that is less than 16,000, it rounds up to 16,000, and it creates a new order if you go above 48,000. So if your forecast is 48,001, it will make one planned production order for 48,000, and then it makes another order for one, and think that through, it rounds that up to 16,000. So if you make your forecast 48,001, you'll get one planned production order for 48,000 and a second planned production order for 16,000. And all of the requisite raw materials will also be ordered. So just realize MRP is set up to make things a little easier, but it's also complicated in what it's doing. There's also a mandatory setup time of 8 hours between products, and that is any of the 12 material codes. It doesn't matter if you're doing the 500 gram nut muesli and then you switch to the 1 kilogram nut muesli, it's 8 hours of setup time. So in thinking this through, you have potentially an order for 48,000 and an order for 16,000. Does it make sense to convert that 16,000 order? It's 8 hours of setup time, so that's 8,000 units you could have been producing. So convert your production orders following a strategy. Next one. Why am I not moving forward? Come on, here we go. It looks like I have two of the same thing here. Oh, all right. I have the same slide here, but I have an extra thing at the bottom. Sorry about that. Okay, so just realize it doesn't make sense to do the smaller orders unless that's part of your team strategy. And that's something to work through with your planner and your analyst. Okay, a hint. Multiple steps in the production process can be completed. Round 0, day 0, meaning before the simulation has started. As soon as you receive your client, your company code, your user ID, all that kind of stuff, as long as you've talked to your group and you know what you're doing, you can do the sales forecast, execute MRP, convert your purchase requisitions to purchase orders, and you can be waiting in purchase order tracking. So have purchase order tracking up, simulation starts, refresh. Round 1, day 1, it will show that your raw materials will be delivered on round 1, day 2. They will appear round 1, day 2, and you can start manufacturing round 1, day 2. You can convert all of those orders. So you can actually have your production in process before other teams who are waiting until round 1, day 1. So just realize you can do all of these beforehand. Don't forget, profit is what you're really going for here. Every decision should either increase revenue or decrease expenses, preferably both. Every single decision you make within ERPsim should have this in mind. So it's all about profit. Am I increasing revenue or decreasing expenses? So your role itself is revenue. Better production means better revenue. What about the expenses though? So there's 8 hours of setup time between products. You can talk with your group about setup time reduction, that is a strategy, but there is always mandatory setup time between products. You cannot possibly get it lower than 2 hours. And even getting it down to 2 hours is prohibitively expensive. So you need to think through. If you're converting smaller production orders, that's 8,000 units you could have been manufacturing, and your expenses continue to build up during those 8 hours. So that's 8 hours of downtime where you aren't generating revenue, potential revenue, but you are still having expenses. So again, see the participants guide, read my textbook for guidance on this, but just realize there is a strategy to the production process. So within the textbook's sections on strategy, a lot of it focuses on the production process. Make sure you're reading that. And then you also want to quantify as well. So see the sections on OData for strategy. And within that, there are step-by-step instructions for creating a quantified production strategy using real-time ERPsim data. And remember, communicate. You have the system. Now the system is going to be functioning, and you have a lot of different steps that you're working through on this. It's going to feed back into the ERP system. Everyone else can see what you're doing, but you need to let them know. If it takes them 5 or 6 days, simulated days, to actually see what it is that you're doing, but you could tell them in the same simulated day you're doing it, well, that's even better. Everyone can react. They can give you feedback, you give them feedback. Your company's more profitable. Remember, this is video number 2 of 4. Video number 1 is the introduction to all of this strategy. The next 2 videos will give overview of the roles for the sales manager and combined analyst and planner. They are separate videos, but they're for everyone on your team. Everyone should watch these. You should cross-train, understand the roles and limitations of each one. And again, 2 heads are better than 1. Somebody else might see something for the sales manager, and they haven't been assigned or haven't taken that role. So again, everyone should understand what everyone else is doing. Have the manufacturing game job aid handy. Highly recommend that you have it printed. It is too much to fit on your screen to have the PDF and SAP and any analytics and everything else going on. Remember, the job aid is an overview of the game. It presumes you know what you're doing. You just need a refresher. You have the job aid, the participants guide, manufacturing game slides. These come from ERPsim themselves and just kind of give you more factual information. My textbook gives you more strategic-oriented talk about the manufacturing game, and also teaches you some of the concepts behind it. In addition, there are my YouTube videos. I have many other YouTube videos. Subscribe to my channel. And there are other people's videos as well. Again, the other videos may not be as up-to-date as mine, but they might have some strategies that work for you as well. And remember, this is video 2 of 4. There are 2 more videos to go.